Hi there guys and girls, welcome back to Play Modelling. First off, just wanted to start this video with an apology, as it's been about 190-ish days since the last video released to the channel. In truth, I've not been very well at all, and a lot of things have happened in those 195 days. My dog passed away, I moved house, I am currently in one hell of a mental health crisis, how I would expect it, I don't know. So just bear with us. There is some videos coming. It's just a bit slow and far between at the moment, but they are coming. I do promise you. But anyway, on with the show.
Hi guys and girls, welcome back to Kit Table Modelling. So this time around we are going to be putting this little guy into a diorama. I'm going to do this in a different fashion to normal. I'm going to do it as a real-time walkthrough talkthrough, as I'm going to be incorporating a new effect into the diorama, which is water. And so the idea is sort of have this guy driving along, going down an embankment into a big puddle. Nice splash effect, bell wave, etc. And we'll see how that pans out. But before I do any weathering to the vehicle itself, we're actually going to build the terrain. So then, for the terrain for this diorama, we are going to be primarily using XPF cut-offs, bits I've not used in the past or haven't found it useful. So this chunk, it's not huge. So for example, this little guy will sit happily in the middle. We've got about 3 fingers width all around the vehicle, so it's not going to be overwhelming. It's going to be quite a compact, small little scene. As I said before, we're going to have him coming down an embankment or a slope into a big body of water and whatnot. So to take this from a flat piece, we are going to add, quite simply, some cut-offs into it to be able to elevate the model to the desired angle. Before anyone says anything about the wheels, they are not glued on, they're held on with blue tack. Wheeled vehicles, I always do the same. If I'm not weathering the vehicle there and then, I will just hold the wheels on with blue tack so I can get in behind them at a later date. So, okay, so we want to bring him up a little bit more, so we'll slide those two ones back. And the one in like so. Maybe bring that forward a little bit to about there. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that angle. So we are going to slide that lot back a little bit and reposition like so. So it gives us a nice space in front of the vehicle to be able to mess around with. And also it means the amount of terrain work that we've got to put in to create the elevation is going to be at a minimal. So I'm just going to use some chalk to sort of mark out where the front of the vehicle is. So I don't lose put a little witness mark on the wheel actually as well. It's chalk so it rubs off quite nicely, but the webbing would hide the effect anyway. Okay, so now what do you do? So let's take him off for a sec. So these pieces of XPS on the foam on the back, I'm going to attach these down with either some PVA or double-sided sticky tape or hot glue gun, whatever you got lying around to hand. I happen to have all 3 lying around to hand, and then we will go from there into a bit of sculpting and moulding. Also as well, can fill this back up with another offcut that I have just found, and I've lost again because I can't remember where I put it. Okay, so we'll cut back as soon as I've got those held down with some glue, etc. Okay, so now the glue's dried properly, and whatnot, which can do a little bit of modification to the foam base. So I did this piece off camera, literally just sawed through it with a old hacksaw blade, big kitchen knife, bread knife, anything with a serrated edge will make light work of the material. I did it off camera because it's quite a clumsy job using a old hacksaw blade, and I wouldn't have made good film quality. But when it comes to smaller edge pieces and whatnot, any good knife will work. So a craft knife, a scalpel, anything you like. And all we're going to do is take that from a square angle and cut it at a slight angle. When I can get my words out today, just to round that off slightly, so when you apply your scenic material, there's not a definitive lip. Okay, so like I said, a craft knife or scalpel, etc., just doesn't have to be perfect. It's just removing that 90-degree angle. And then again, we're just going to work it down a little bit, just so we're not left with, I do pick the bluntest knife I've got in the box, work it down a little bit so we're not left with that 90-degree angle. It doesn't have to be perfect whatsoever. Change knives. You can do the same to this bottom lip. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect, as this is all going to get covered anyway. Once again, I pick the second bluntest knife in the box. Jesus Christ, what is wrong with me? Okay, so now before you apply your scenic material, paper mache, whatever you like, you could potentially build that up another step, or just leave it as it is. I'm just going to leave it as it is, as I want quite a decent ramp in angle. So the material I'm going to be using is this stuff from Geek Gaming Scenic's modelling compound. It's essentially a sculptor mould clone at about quarter of the price, and it comes in kilo bags in a nice box, which is quite nice. But it is essentially a sculptor mould clone. Pop this open. It is literally sculptor mould. So the way I mix this up is normally by eye, completely by eye. I do wear gloves for this because it's plaster and it ends up sticking in your hands and gets everywhere. I can get the gloves on. There we go. Move that to one side. Don't do what I'm doing using your wife's best measuring jug. If she finds out, you will be murdered. And I normally do about 2-3 decent handfuls, depending on the size of the terrain. So for this one, I'm going to do about 2 handfuls. And if I need more, I'll just sprinkle some more in a little bit. Just normal water being added in. And then get your hand in there, give it a good mix so it turns into like a pasty putty sort of material. Always start with less water because you can always add more if you don't have a huge quantity of sculpting material. And after a few, well, not even a couple of minutes, it's basically like Play-Doh, pretty much. Just wet, sticky Play-Doh. So the reason I use this stuff is it sticks to pretty much any XPS foam quite nicely. And it doesn't have a horrendously long drying time. Like, for example, I know sculptor molders normally leave it for a couple of days before it goes completely hard. This stuff you can leave it about 24 hours overnight in a warm kitchen and it's dry to the point you can work your next phase, etc. That's why I quite like this stuff. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is fill in this gap here before I move on to the upper and lower elements of the diorama. A good old sausage, just get it mashed in there so it fills that gap quite nicely. The good thing about this stuff, it doesn't exactly shrink when it's dry. I'm not worried about making a mess over the edges because later on we can just sand that completely flat. And also we're going to cover the edges with some edging material. So it doesn't have to be 100% neat, 100% perfect, because this stuff, yeah, you can get it absolutely smooth as you like, but at the same time you can have it so it's quite textured, so it gives a nice ground layer effect. Okay, now I'm just going to move on to the upper parts. Spin around. I might have to mix up a little bit more of this because I'm not worried about filling in the bottom as much, as that's going to be filled in with water textures and it will be rather hidden from view. So just this upper echelon. Get the material on there, nice and simple. There we go. So it doesn't have to be dead flat, as well. In nature, things aren't completely perfect. As you all know, you do not get straight lines in nature. If there's a straight line in nature, something's either gone freakishly wrong or it's not natural. So in a second, I'm going to change gloves. And I'm going to pick the model up and just have a think about where we're going to be adding some depressions into the material. So I do try and keep the edges as nice as possible because it does make life a little bit easier in the long run. And this material is very workable, so you can work it even when it's drying, just wet fingers, and you can smooth it out quite nicely. So this base area here, just slap a little bit on just to cover any sort of discrepancies in height, and it means that you've got less space to try and fill with water. So okay, got a little bit left, so just gonna wang chung a little bit in here. Like I said, I'm not too worried about the base, the lowest part of the diorama being covered, as it is going to be filled in materials. So I'm just making sure I know where that lip is in there, which is perfecto. Well, it's not perfecto, but it doesn't have to be perfecto at this point. Okay, so So, quick change of gloves. Excuse me. Okay, so I'm not too worried about getting sealant material on the tide itself, as they're going to be covered with weathering later on. So, what's the best way to do this? Let's go over that angle. Just one side. So I know approximately where I want the front wheels, so I'm just going to depress them in slightly so they leave a small indentation. I'm just using the front wheels only, just so I get a good idea about where we're going. And I don't know how well that comes up on camera, because I can't exactly see my camera right now. But I can see the two distinct tracks there. So all I'm going to do is using fingers, just accentuate those marks slightly and continue them up through the remainder of the piece. Just smooth them down into where the water feature is going to be. Just like so. Just give that little middle piece a slight raise. And like I said, with this stuff, it's very easy to make it smooth. Where it's wet, you can very easily just gentle pressure and rub it across, and you can smooth the material out quite nicely. There we go. So with the remaining material that I have left, I'm just going to add a little bit of a embankment style lump on either side of the track, especially on the higher portions. Because once again, we'll be adding material to the top of this anyway, so it doesn't have to be pitch perfect. It doesn't matter if it overflows the side a little bit, because we can just trim that down later. A little bit of deformation with jabby fingers, because we can sand and trim this off later on with either a sharp knife or some sanding paper. But we are going to be adding a what's it called? A textured mud effect. There's a couple of ways you can do this. It's either through a specialised product or through what I'm going to do, using actual mud from the garden, well, dirt from the garden. There we go. Just using any of the excess which is overflowing the sides up here, just to add to that base layer where the water will be. Make sure that's nice and quite refined, and just continue those ruts down. There we go. Just move that top bit out there. Right, I'm just going to let this dry, and we'll be back as soon as it's dry.